Previously what we understood is, so we discussed in up to the languages, like we understood computer needs to understand our instruction in some other languages which human cannot understand, only machine can understand. That is why that is called machine language or low level language. For that we have to develop the uh, codes for that in the higher languages or assembly languages, using different high level languages like C, C++, Fortran, Java, Python, etc. So let us discuss deeply about the languages. So what is language? A program is a set of instructions given to a computer to perform specific operation. It only can do specified operation. The computers which are used in hospitals cannot be used for constructions, cannot be used in mining, cannot be used for research purposes. Please understand. That is why it is called specific operation. Or computer is a computation device which is used to process the data under the control of a computer program. While executing the program, raw data is processed into a desired output information or output format. These computer programs are written in a programming language which are high level languages. High level languages are nearly human languages which are more complex than the computer understandable language, which are called machine language or low level language. Hope you understood this. So after knowing the basics, we are ready to create a very simple and basic program. So let us understand, we have different languages to communicate with each other. Likewise, we have different languages like C, C++, C hash, Java, Python, etc. to communicate with the computers. The computer only understands binary languages, which is used in the machine languages, which undergoes, it uses only zeros and ones. So programs cannot be written in machine languages. It should be written in high level languages, which is almost similar to human language. Language processors. So here these language processors are um, interface between high level language to low level language. So it converts the input into machine understandable language. Just understand that language processor is machine dependent, yet mnemonics that are being used to represent instruction in it are not directly understandable by machine, and high level language is machine independent. So here we need a converter, right? Let us understand, a computer understands instructions in machine code that that is in the form of zeros and ones. Repeatedly we are using the word machine code or machine language or low level languages where only zeros and ones are understood by the computers. It is very tedious task to write a computer program directly in machine code. It is very difficult to write. No expert can do this, or no expert can directly write machine codes. It is tedious, right? The programs are written mostly in high level languages like Java, C, C++, Python, etc. are called source codes. Source means it is the source for the data feeding. This source code cannot be executed directly by the computer, must be converted into machine language to be executed. Hence, a special translator system, or yeah, system software is used to translate the program written in high language high level language into machine code is called language processors. They are the converters, they are the translators. Let us see which are the types of translators and what are the features of it, and what are the drawbacks of them, and what are the advantages of them in the next slides. The language processors can be following type. One is the compiler. So what does compiler do? The language processor that reads the complete source program written in high language as a whole in one go and translate it into equivalent program in machine language is called as a compiler. Hope you understood. Here it is a source code. The language processor that reads the complete source program which is written in or written by using these high level languages, it converts that into low level languages or machine languages. This is the function of a compiler. So what does it do when the written language is in a paragraph or it's in a bulk? It understands entire paragraph. It reads in everything in one go and it completely translates that into machine language. In a compiler, the source code is translated to object code. Object code is nothing but the machine languages, which is converted uh, by compiler using the fed in data. Code successfully in if it is free of errors. If you find the set of source, it completely reads the source program. It may be in the bulk or in paragraphs. Huge data will be fed in. It reads everything. If it finds a small error in it, it cannot go further until that error is removed. You cannot or it cannot translate the fed in data into machine language. It gives the error, then only errors must be removed and before the compiler can successfully recompile the source code again. This is the flow chart. Source code is nothing but which is written in the high level language using C, C++, Python and all. It will be this set of instructions will be read by this compiler and it will convert them into machine language. So source code is converted into object code using the compilers. Hope you understand. Second one is the assembler. The assembler is used to translate the program written in assembly language into machine language. Here assembly language is a special type of language which is written by using numericals as numbers and the alphabets. The source program is a input of assembler that contains assembly language instructions. The output generated by the assembler is the object code and or the machine code understandable by the computer. There we used the high level language. Here we are using assembly language. Assembly language, I repeat, it is the language written in language written using numbers and alphabets like ABCD. Okay, so here it reads source code, that is assembly language, and converts to object code or machine language. This is the function of the assembler. So what is the difference here? Okay, let's take that in the next slide. Interpreter. The translation of single statement of source program into machine code is done by the language processor and execute it immediately before moving on to the next line is called an interpreter. So it takes the input line by line or the source code and it reads each line and then processes to the machine language. If there is an error in the statement, the interpreter terminates the translating process. If you see in the compiler what it was, it used to read the bulk data. Then if it finds some errors, it used to stop and after the removal of the errors, it used to process further or proceed further. Here in the interpreter what happens, it reads the data or the source code line by line. Understand this. Single statement source program into machine code is done by the language processor and again immediately before moving to the next line. It takes line by line. If it finds any error in one line, until the removal of that, it cannot proceed further. The interpreter moves on to the next line for execution only after the removal of the error. An interpreter directly executes instructions written in a programming or scripting language without previously converting them to an object code or a machine code. Example, Perl, Python, MATLAB are the best examples of the interpreter, which are the latest invention in this field. Let us compare or the differentiate the functions of compiler and an interpreter. So compiler is taking the source code, programming into execute machine code for a CPU. Interpreter takes a source program, runs it line by line, translating each line as it comes to it. Just now we discussed. Compiler takes large amount of time to analyze the entire source because it reads the data in bulk or in one go. That's why it takes more time to read the source code, but for conversion it takes less time. Execute the overall execution time of the program is comparatively faster, but interpreter takes less amount of time to analyze the source code because it reads line by line, but overall execution time of the program is slower. This is the interpreter is slower in the output part, but in the input part interpreter is faster. In if you take compiler reads the data source code very fast, but sorry, it takes more time to read the source code, and but it converts or translates the entire program faster than interpreter. Compiler generates the error message only after scanning the whole program, but here in interpreter it reads line by line, it identifies any error very fast. Hope you understood the languages and the language processors. Continuing to the next part of the discussion is a GUI. GUI is latest invention after 1980s. Because of this, it became very because of this, an illiterate also can use the computer very efficiently. It is just read this line is a system of interactive visual components for a computer software. A GUI, graphical user interface, displays objects that convey information and represent actions that can be taken by the user. The objects change color, size, visibility when the user interacts with them. For example, GUI objects, it will be seen in the icons or cursors or buttons. If you well, this pointing device is there, na, this is also GUI. These graphical elements are sometimes enhanced with the sounds or visual effects. Sounds means if you see sometimes if you press on one icon, it gives you the sound, right? See, this is the best example of a GUI. This is Windows 7 desktop. You are finding start button in the left bottom. If you press here, you will find all the programs which are fed in unto up to control panel. Right, this bar is a task bar. If you open many, which are the icons open, Windows, Excel sheet, or Chrome, or any other things which are open, you are able to see here which icons are open. Any notifications are there. If for example, if you inserted one external software, external hardware like pen drive, it shows what is happening to that software. It shows software related to that pen drive is installing, then it shows installed. You can if you want to eject it, it shows you can remove the software uh, safely, something it gives the message that gives the notification bar. In the left right bottom corner you see time and date. These are the icons, right? So you are able to operate them with operate this with the help of this pointing devices or keyboard shortcuts, or nowadays very efficiently touch screens. These are all because of graphical users interface. This one I just explained you. Mouse, keyboard and the keyboard shortcut and arrow keys are used to point the particular icons on the screen. If you wanted to open a program on a GUI system, you would move the mouse pointer to the program's icon and double click on this, right? If you open the desktop, you will find many data are saved on that. If you want to open computer, you will double click on that. Then you will be finding there C Pro, C drive, E drive, D drives, many drives. In which drive you store the data, then you will click on that particular drive and it opens up. That is what written in this, and that is the functionality of the GUI. Which are the platforms where GUI is used? Before GUI, there was another system called command line operating system or command based operating system or command based users interface, like Unix or MS disk operating systems. When GUI was invented, first iPhone was used that efficiently in 1983. Apple company used that interface very efficiently. Then Microsoft Windows and other um, platforms used that Microsoft systems, Mac OS is operating system of Apple. Both are Apple's. Chrome OS, Linux, Ubuntu. This all use users interface or graphical users interface. Because of this, an illiterate also can operate the system efficiently and without knowing any languages, computer languages like C, C++, or hash, C hash, nothing. They need not know anything. I am operating this PowerPoint without knowing the basics in the computer system, or I don't know any of the languages. Even though I am able to handle this PowerPoint or anything which is related to Windows. A pointing device such as mouse is used to interact with the same is repeated here. One more question to clarify is sorry, does a GUI require a mouse? The answer is no, because experts can replace mouse with keyboard shortcuts. For example, if you see a tab is there in the keyboard to move forward, space bars are there. Then there are control C, V, control B, control N, control U, control I. Many type of controls are there. Control P. Experts will use those keyboards for navigation. Here, see here, have options for navigating the interface with a keyboard only. That is why there is no compulsion that mouse should be there to operate the system.